Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Online Learning and Continuing Higher Education. My name is Alex Seabrook, Events Marketing Specialist at Learning House, and I'm happy to be joined today by Andrew Magda, Manager of Market Research at Learning House, and Bill Boozing, Past President of the Association for Continuing Higher Education. Before getting started, I want to review a few housekeeping items. First, we welcome your questions and comments. Please type your questions and comments into the chat pane, and be sure to send your message to all staff and not only the organizer or the presenter to ensure your questions get answered. A moderator will respond to questions in the chat pane throughout the presentation. We will also take 15 minutes following today's 45-minute presentation for our presenters to answer your questions. A copy of today's PowerPoint slides, as well as a recording of today's presentation, will be sent to all attendees. And now, I will introduce our presenters. Andrew J. Magda leads the development of custom and large-scale market research studies and assists partner institutions with their research needs. Prior to Learning House, he was a senior analyst at EduVentures and a project manager at the Center for Survey Research and Analysis at the University of Connecticut. Bill Boozing currently serves as a faculty member and dissertation chair for the doctoral program in education at Concordia University, Portland. In addition to previous continuing education leadership roles at Boston College, Newberry College, Northeastern University, and Eastern Nazarene College, he is a seasoned instructor of English composition and literature, leadership in higher education administration, and on-ground, hybrid, blended, and online modalities. With that said, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Andrew and Bill.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the webinar. Bill, I just wanted you to be able to take a minute up top here and also just inform the audience if they're not familiar with the background of ACHE.
Thank you so much to the Learning House for setting up this webinar. As Andrew said, I'm Bill Boozing, past president of ACHE. ACHE, the Association for Continuing Higher Education, for those of you who do not know, is an association of probably about 1,200 members and about 180 institutions throughout North America. We've been around since about 1938, initially as an association of evening schools, and we have definitely evolved with the times. We have a national meeting as well as regional meetings throughout the spring, great exchange of ideas, best practices, and really work in a mutually supported network to really fine-tune a lot of the expertise. And we have a special emphasis on professional development of our continuing education leaders. So with that being said, there was it made a lot of sense to partner with the Learning House on this particular membership survey to really gain some insights on our online programs, current state, as well as future opportunities for all our member institutions.
And that is, correct, Bill. This process started I would say about a year ago at the 79th annual ACHE annual member meeting, and we just presented the findings. One year later, a couple of weeks ago, here at the 80th annual, and a year ago, myself and Carol Islany were presenting the findings from our annual online college student study, which Learning House does each year, surveying 1,500 online college students. And Bill, coming into his presidential role at ACHE, thought that would be great if we can get an institutional perspective, specifically from ACHE members, to see, knowing what the online students were looking for from our online student questionnaire, how were the institutions actually performing in terms of delivering on these preferences that the students have. So we constructed a 50-question survey, sent it out to nearly 500 deans and director ACHE members this past spring. and 24% of those responded. So a nice response rate to these types of surveys. We know a lot of deans and directors and provosts and so on are really getting survey fatigue, always being asked for their opinions on these different matters, which are all obviously very important. So we were quite happy with that 24% response rate from the ACHE members. And we were really looking to understand, as I said, how they were performing in terms of these preferences for online learners, any barriers or challenges in scaling their online operations, and what their plans were looking forward. So any future ideas, we're obviously big in the news now is competency-based learning and micro-credentials. So just understanding how these continuing education units, traditionally seen as incubators for innovations on college campuses, how they were planning for the future. So going through the report, it was quite a lengthy report. I obviously encourage all you to download it from our site. We'll have a link at the end there. But I just wanted to walk through some of the key findings that we found. Obviously, this isn't everything that was in the report, so obviously go and flip through it. But these are just some of the key points that we wanted to go over. So while we're all here, obviously looking at online learning has been its growth as traditional higher education enrollments have plateaued over the last few years. As we see from 2012 to 2016, total student enrollments, that first column, going from 20.3 million down to 20.2 million, so a little decrease there. But in terms of online student enrollments, going from 2.2 million to 2.9 million over that same time, obviously, as a result, increasing its share of total student enrollments in higher education. So as traditional enrollments have kind of stagnated, over the last few years, online is still being seen as an area of growth that institutions, if they're feeling those enrollment pressures, are starting to turn more and more towards these adult online learners as a way to help supplement their on-campus populations and, obviously bringing the same amount of tuition revenue. So looking specifically at the ACHE members, asking them initially just how many online programs were they offering at their institutions. And you see here that 0% came in with no online courses or no online or hybrid courses or programs. So every ACHE member that we spoke to, at least was offering some level of hybrid or online programming. 1 to 4 online programs, 39%, and then a full 50% offering 5 or more fully online programs. So that's almost 80% there offering at least 1 or more fully online programs. Now, when we're looking at the data and just our own experience at Learning House, working with many institutions with online levels of online programming, we feel those that do have 5 or more fully online programs just behave a little bit differently than those with 4 or less online programs or just hybrid courses or online courses, because they've gone through, and as we'll talk about, those barriers to growth. They've already had those conversations on campus. They've gone through those growing pains. They've streamlined their operations to a degree to understand the importance of the online student, how they may behave differently. So that's why we like to break out that 5 or more group. And in some instances, I might refer to them as we go through these slides, and I definitely do in the report, just pointing out some of those differences that those institutions may or may not have. Bill, I just wanted to turn it over to you just for a second. Just as being past president of ACHE, active in the organization for a number of years, how do you feel how this data looks? Do you feel many of your members are really over that initial hump in terms of embracing online learning and understanding its importance?
Well, it's a good question, Andrew, and thank you for it. In that, I think having sort of lived through the new normal of online and continuing education in conjunction with various roles at ACHE, I think bringing online front and center is very, very difficult, especially for our smaller private institutions. And this is a way in which a lot of our partnerships and sort of looking at the insights of the better resource institutions, and that sort of partnership has helped a great deal insofar as learning those insights. the fact that online is not only for just our part-time and evening students anymore to a greater extent. And I think that, different studies that I've looked at recently validates the fact that more and more 18 to 22-year-olds full-time on-campus market is looking toward, a combination of on-ground and online. So, to that point, many of our institutions will say, yeah, well, sure, we don't really have, some fully online programs, but online is a necessity when it comes to the way in which we do business. Students are demanding it increasingly. They're looking for schedules which accommodate being on campus some days, especially with the commuter population, and being online for other days. So it's pretty much a non-negotiable when it comes to our institutions, and the fact that there's very few, as the survey indicates, which can any longer claim to be completely face-to-face.
Correct. I think that's, like you said, the new normal that we've been trying to see. As one of the more important questions that we answer here at Learning House, we always try to put it in surveys like these, is just understanding the degree level and the types of degrees that institutions are offering online. What I wanted to point out here that may be a little different for the ACHE audience, because again, these are schools of continuing education, is just it looks like an increased focus on certificates. You see on the table on the left, the last row there, certificates above a bachelor's level, 8.4%. Also in that, you see 3.6% certificates below a bachelor's level. And then on the table on the right, postmaster's certificate, you see that's obviously close to 15% that are offering, with these online programs that they're offering, that are offering certificate programs. Obviously, master's degrees and bachelor's degrees, doctoral degrees to a lesser extent, but really just a robust number of certificate programs, which I think is unique to an organization such as ACHE that is focusing on institutions that have continuing education departments. And we're also seeing, obviously, in the news more and more about breaking up a degree, chunking a degree, stackable certificates. So this may, again, put this particular population at perhaps a little bit of an edge, already focusing in on these certificate levels. Now, obviously, if these are standalone certificates, professional certificates, we would have to dig a little bit more into. But definitely, this was one of the unique findings, I think, coming out of this survey with this particular population. And then looking at the fields of study itself, obviously, we ask the similar field of study question in our online college student survey, and it is the number one field is business, followed by nursing, and then IT. So just keeping that in mind, business here also very strong. 47% offer business programs at the undergraduate level, 52% offer business programs at the graduate level. But what I wanted to also point out was that computers and IT row, where if we go all the way to the far right, 47% of the institutions that offer at least one or more online programs say that they do not offer a computers and IT degree either at the undergraduate, graduate, or non-credit level. So I think that is a gap that we would want to point out here, and an area of opportunity for institutions to look to expand into, knowing that business and nursing are starting to become more and more commoditized areas. If you looked at any school that offers online education, you'll probably find a bachelor's of business administration or an MBA program. You probably also would likely see an RN to BSN completion program, but you'd be harder pressed to find a bachelor's degree in computer science or a master's degree in software engineering or IT management. So I definitely wanted to point that out as a particular area of opportunity for not just ACHE members to look into, but also all different colleges and universities on our webinar today. Further down on this list is a continuation from the previous slide. You'll also look at education and teaching. I just wanted to point that out. At the graduate level, 47% saying they offer education programs This is an area, if we look at the online college student over the years, we've seen a decline at the graduate level of interest in this program as more and more states go into, away from a model where earning a master's degree or going back for continuing education will allow that person to be eligible for a pay raise, going more to that practitioner model. So I just wanted to point that out, that this might be an area of softening where nearly half of the institutions say that they have these types of programs, that they may start to run into a little bit more difficulty in the years to come. Bill, just going back to fields of study, is there any comment you had here?
Aside from the obvious, that I think that the real implication here, Andrew, is the readiness with which our faculty approaches bringing online to different subject matters. Certainly the numbers reflect what we've seen insofar as content of we can't possibly teach X online. Fill in your favorite subject here. And the fact that as we're finding out more and more, it is necessary to have some online components of these various subjects.
Definitely. Yeah. I think as the more we've grown online in terms of new institutions coming online and programs, we're starting to see diversification in the market. So where it used to just be the MBA online maybe 15, 20 years ago, then all of a sudden there was criminal justice and nursing. And now now we're starting to see just super niche areas, sustainability and environmental science. We have schools that have sign language and equine studies online at the Learning House. So I just think, as the market has started to mature, it's really diversifying into areas that sometimes you're pressed to find on-ground programs in, nevertheless thinking that they would be offered fully 100% online. So looking at student behaviors, this actual slide here is data from our online college students 2018 survey. So just keep that in mind. So these are students that we're talking to, and we asked them, how far do you live from your closest campus center? And we always find over the last 7 years we've been asking this question, that it is this 100-mile radius, as we like to call it at Learning House, really just continues to ring true in terms of the majority of students coming within a 50 to 100 miles of any institution. So just because they're online students and you think that we can be enrolling students from across the country or around the world, where that is true, and you may get some students that do come from further distances, the majority, the 66 or 3/4% of your students are going to be coming from that 50 to 100-mile radius. So within that in mind, we wanted to compare that little fact to a question we asked ACHE members, which is, are you marketing one or more of your online programs beyond 150 miles of your campus? And surprisingly, 54% of ACHE members said that they were marketing one or more of their programs outside of a radius where, again, based upon this data, we wouldn't necessarily recommend it. As you see, if going outside 100 miles to 250 miles or more away, that is 13% of students, coming outside that particular radius. So what the key finding here would be, obviously with limited resources, limited marketing dollars, really starting to focus on your own particular backyard, your own region with your programs. If you have a super niche program, like I was talking about, the equine studies or the sign language program, that obviously would be very unique no matter what market you're in, you can obviously market that program beyond 150 miles. So that would be warranted. But if it is your RN to BSN program or your MBA program, spending those marketing dollars, those limited resources that you have within this 150-mile radius would probably be the best use of those of that resource. So this is again comparing the online college student data, which is the light gray, to the ACHE members survey, which is that darker gray, asking these students and also institutions around transfer credit. We know that I believe it's 80% or more of online college students are coming with undergraduate transfer credit. And we know that these students are very price sensitive and they're looking to obviously transfer in as many of those credits as possible. So on the online college student survey, we asked them, how quickly would you like to hear back during the enrollment process about your transfer credits, how many of them would be accepted into the program, even if it is, a provisional evaluation, not an official transfer credit evaluation. And what we found is that they obviously are looking to move very quickly. So you see 29% even before submitting their application would like to hear, at least unofficially, about their transfer credits. Less than 1 week after submitting their application, an additional 18% would like to hear about them then. And what we're trying to show here is that ACHE members are actually pretty well meeting these demanding timelines from these online college students. Now, when we've asked more traditional institutions, Learning House works with a lot of small private institutions. We've worked with some public institutions, and we always bring up that, this idea of being able to respond to these students very quickly. Sometimes they look at this data and shake their head that it's just impossible. How can we move this quickly? Which is why I bring up the idea of provisional transfer credit evaluations, knowing that if you have articulation agreements in hand from certain area colleges, that that their accounting 101 course will equally count towards your accounting 101 requirement. So just being able to answer some of those questions really helps meet these students where they need to be met, which is trying to make this decision as quickly as they can, which is unfortunate in some regards, but this is, these students are moving very quickly and these schools have to meet them. So I just wanted to point out just how well it looks as if the ACHE members are meeting these students' needs in that particular way. Bill, did you want to chime in here?
Absolutely. It's, talk about sort of a brave new world, Andrew, when it comes to some of these considerations. Saying over the last 15 years, while I've been working leading continuing education units, there has been a shift for which a lot of us weren't prepared. We used to, and I think this is actually an Islanian stat, we used to always say about 12 to 24 months of a discernment process for students going into programs. And you could probably cite better than I can the fact that that has been reduced to a matter of days in some instances. With the transfer credit, it really felt like 10 years ago, the students were sort of beholden to our will when it came to what we would take, and they'd say, okay, good enough. We're seeing far more of a negotiation when it comes to incoming students. And the fact is, if they don't have timely and good and they have some certainty their credits will be accepted, they move on rather quickly. And, this sort of readiness is something that we have been talking among our member institutions, certainly using a combination of the transfer credits as well as the prior learning assessment, and having the readiness so that upon initial engagement with a prospective student, you could say with some certainty, or you can give the authority of the frontline people, the people at the front door, of we can get this back to you rather quickly, but I'm pretty sure we could take X number of credits and you'd be qualified for prior learning assessment in these areas. And so this very much rings true that our institutions are becoming very responsive to this reality.
Awesome. And this is the slide I was talking about in terms of the number of undergraduate credits these online college students are coming in with. So again, you see it's a rather large percent of undergraduates here that we're looking at, not counting graduate students, but looking that have some level of credit that they're looking to bring into their program. And obviously, the more credits they can bring in, the better. And these are, again, academic credits here. This isn't even getting into experiential learning or ACE credits or CLEP or anything like that. So these are just from past institutions that they've earned credit from. Looking to bring that credit in and looking, as Bill was saying, to understand how many of those credits can be brought into the program in the beginning, and if they're feeling they're not getting that response, or they're being told that they'll have to wait until after the application process, that they're likely will move on, or they may be already talking to a school that is being able to provide them that information, and therefore just move on and continue down the pipeline with that particular institution. So factors in decision making, this is again the ACHE member responding here. So thinking about your institution, what is the most important factors you feel an online student or important to an online student's decision to enroll in one of your online programs? So they are focusing on reputation of the institution, 40% ranking that as their number one factor they feel students are looking at. competitive tuition and fees, a distant second with 22%. So definitely in that that reputation, so knowing just how quality the education is the students receiving, and then being competitive with their price. Interestingly, these are also the top factors for when we talk to online college students. Their number one factor is tuition and fees, not surprisingly, but reputation of the institution is usually a close 2 or 3, along with reputation of the program offered. So students factors are aligning well here with what ACHE members feel are also the important factors for students to consider when enrolling in their programs. So again, strong alignment here between what ACHE members are thinking and offering and what online students are looking at as well. So again, that's a nice stat there to look at. Online college students, so thinking again about that tuition and fees being their number one factor, 28% will choose the least expensive program that they're evaluating, and they're evaluating between 2 and 3 institutions during their enrollment process. So looking at 2 or 3 institutions, 28% are just going to choose the least expensive. There's not much you can do about it if you're not the least expensive program they're looking at. It's unfortunate they're going to go and sort by that tuition and choose the least expensive. Now, the other 72%, they're obviously price sensitive. They're similar to that other group, but they're willing to consider other factors in their decision outside of tuition. So they would pay a little bit more in tuition if they felt they received. And now, if you look at the findings, looking at the program's convenience and its format and its location, again, looking for a school within that 50 to 100-mile radius, if they feel it meets some of those needs, and it isn't the least expensive program, they're willing to pay a little bit more for that. If they're looking at the content of the program, so again, if they are looking for an RN to BSN program, or they are looking for a program that's going to help them advance in their particular industry or career, if they feel that content is more relevant to them, they're going to be willing to pay a little bit more for that program. Again, going back to reputation, if they are looking at 2 or 3 institutions, and they're satisfied with the programs at all of them, they may look at the reputation of the institution or the name value of that program with their employers, perhaps, and say that this is a higher quality program, this is a better institution with a better reputation, and I'll pay a little bit more in the tuition for that particular program. So just because again, you aren't the least expensive provider in your particular market, look at some of these other factors that you can bring to the forefront to your particular online students in explaining why even though you're not the least expensive program in the market, why you might still be a good fit for them. Looking at these particular areas to talk about in your marketing messages, talking about your reputation, talking about the high quality content that you're providing, how it may align to particular employers' needs, going down and saying that you have these agreements in place with employers, or you've talked to employers in the area and you know that your skills that you're baking into your curriculum are the ones that they're valuing. Again, talking about your region and how you're located, and your flexibility that you're providing these students. So just hitting on some of these points may help you with those particular students, showing them why that just because you aren't the least expensive provider, you still might be the best fit for them. Again, comparing at the ACHE members with the online college students, looking at the importance of scholarships. So again, price sensitivity. Obviously, ACHE members are offering many of these items outside of a free course, but tuition payment plans, helping those students break up their tuition bills, understanding that just financial aid and loans alone may not be sufficient for some students, looking at different ways of tackling that. And then we have scholarships and tuition discounts, which again are very similar items, but obviously students are, if you're able to say it's a scholarship, those students or might value that a little bit more because it does have that prestige factor of being able to go to your family or go to your employer and talk about the scholarship that you received rather than the tuition discount that you received. Obviously, students feel that they are pretty similar, but I just feel marketing wise, a scholarship might sound a little better or a little more appealing to students when they're making their decision compared to a tuition discount. But we see that, again, ACHE members, a large percent here, almost half offering scholarships for their online programs, and 51% offering tuition discounts, likely through employer partnerships in the area. Free textbooks, this is the end of that particular graph on the free slide, on the previous slide. So if you see free courses, only 8% of ACHE members offer, 4% offer free textbooks, and 4% offer free technology. So you see those are obviously on the lower end of the student's perspective as well. And 18% say that they don't offer any of these particular items. So that group that falls into the 18%, I would just caution again around the price sensitivity of these students and the importance of being able to offer some sort of discount or some sort of scholarship to help persuade those students to choose your institution. Bill, did you have anything before I move on more about scholarships around what you've been seeing in the market the last few
I
years?
do. Right, I do. On the last few slides, it's actually it's of interest to me in that I've seen sort of firsthand the conversation come around to value. And I think this is what you're really talking about, in that if you're the best reputation but the most expensive, not necessarily going to be the choice. If you are a fair to middling reputation, but sort of harp on the fact that you're the most inexpensive, it is viewed with some skepticism. And the scholarshiping piece definitely goes into the value sensibility. I think as a larger culture, we're having a significant conversation around sort of the value of the degree and the value of college. So this sort of aligns very much with what's going on with the culture right now. Bottom line is, and you might disagree with this, Andrew, but bottom line is it really is a buyer's market right now. With a great economy and fewer people coming back to school, nights, part-time, and evening, it's gotten highly competitive, at least in the Boston area. I'm sure in other areas as well. Secondly, the fact of the matter is there is a significant birth dearth going on in all but 5 states in the country, and we have to think more and more on how we are incentivizing students into our programs around these very factors.
No, exactly. And then, as you said, being in that Boston market, obviously very competitive in terms of the number of institutions and programs there, but also, a lot of highly priced degrees in there as well. So thinking about different ways of scholarshiping can, maybe make a potential impact in that market as well. So going on a little bit more around scholarships, just to finish off the point, from the online college student survey, we see 2 different years worth of data here from it. And mainly I just want to point at that top row, the $500, that, to what extent would an annual scholarship of $500 sway your decision to enroll in one school versus another? And, 40% saying that it would. So that's just a fact to take away. Again, going back to that previous slide where 18% of ACHE members said they didn't offer any of those scholarships or tuition discounts or free textbooks and all those different items. Just to think about that, 40% of online college students would be swayed by as little as $500 annually to enroll in one program over the other. I just think take that particular bit of information back with you and again, think about how you're marketing your program, talking about what differentiates yourself from other institutions. And if it really isn't strong messaging around that you can't really show how you're different from all your different institutions in your region, that this stat would really play into what you're seeing in terms of your enrollments. Because if they are not able to differentiate between provider A and provider B, and they do fall back onto that tuition and fees as being their number one factor, then this is where that scholarship is really going to play a role in terms of their decision making. So before we move into the next section, I just wanted to remind everyone that please use that chat function if you have any particular questions for Bill and I. We can definitely take those at the end, or if there is anything particular about a slide that we have up, we can obviously answer the question about that particular slide while we have it up. So the structure of an online operation, obviously ACHE, these are continuing education units. As I talked about a little bit earlier, traditionally incubation centers for educational evolution there, going back to the days of correspondence, going back to satellite campuses and actually satellite transmission of courses. As I was saying, ACHE 80-year anniversary this year. So obviously these units have been around for a long time, and we've seen a lot of change and evolution over the time in terms of pedagogy and delivery of education. So online really starting in many these institutions, starting within these particular units, we see that the bottom row there, 10 years ago, 77% of online programs were served by the CE unit. Compared to today, it's down to 69% of online programs are served by the CE unit. So we see as online has grown and matured over the last 10 years and even longer, that it's starting to proliferate throughout different parts of the institution as these programs have generated more enrollments and generated more tuition dollars. Particular units might have taken their programs back in-house and away from this continuing education unit, but still, I think 69% is a rather large percentage of support that these CE units can claim they're providing online programs on their campus. Because we'll move on and we'll see also that the amount of revenue being generated and being able to take credit for some of that, I think would be great as you're fighting for more and more resources to help provide support to these online programs. One area being around faculty training. Thinking about these CE units, 72% are offering training on the LMS, providing that fully to these instructors that are teaching online. 63% offering instructional design support. And then as we go down a little bit lower on the list, faculty help desk, only 38% providing this fully to faculty that are training online. 25% do not offer that at all. So that, again, it could be an area of investment when you're thinking about how we can better serve faculty, how can we better retain students, because obviously the stronger the faculty members are in their instruction, the more engaging they are, the more they can help these students, the better retained they can be. So I think maybe looking at this faculty help desk, being able to serve them. Obviously, online courses go on, 24 hours a day. They're not just those set meeting times. So faculty may need help on off hours, and being able to help them out so they can better serve the students might be a strong area of investment. Looking at the service areas for faculty, if these are provided online or on ground, we see that the majority here, in terms of instructional training on pedagogy, instructional design support, and LMS training are provided both online and on ground to these faculty members, which I think is a great stat to see here, knowing that some faculty might learn a little bit different, not necessarily requiring them to learn these or access these services in an online or on-ground fashion. Obviously, thinking about adjunct faculty that maybe couldn't come to campus, making sure that they're able to access this in an online format is also important. And again, that faculty help desk is the one area where we're starting to see not necessarily universal adoption, and could be an area. Well, I think we just had a question come in. Let me read it. Do we have any suggestions for projecting first semester enrollments in new online programs? We're looking at launching our first online undergraduate pathway program and are struggling on what to expect. Obviously, it depends a lot on the factors like marketing, but any good advice for this? Well, Bill, before I ask you your opinion on this, I would agree that it is a lot of different factors around this. Obviously, we're looking at which programs that you're offering. If it is, again, going back to those business and IT and healthcare programs, if it's in one of these mass market areas, as we call them, that's a little bit different than it is if it is one of those smaller, more niche areas. Mainly, I would look at if the program you're currently offering is also offered on ground, using that as one particular starting point to looking at what enrollments projections could be, and then also how widely you're marketing it, how, obviously looking at within that 100-mile radius of your institution, but if there are particular population centers that you would be looking to pull from. And also if the program has something like a feeder channel, such as a partnership with an employer in the area, again, what you could potentially expect from that employer partnership to feed students into that program. So it's really, I would say, hard to say without knowing some of those other factors around it. But Bill, I'm sure you've launched a number of online programs in your career. So when you're looking at these programs that you're launching and you're looking at those first semester enrollments, are there any
Right.
rules of thumb you would use?
Yeah. Well, it's first of all, we often tread carefully. First of all, because especially if this is a program which is already on ground on campus, the big reaction we're going to get from especially faculty on campus is, oh, well, are you going to cannibalize our current enrollments or our potential enrollments and put them in this very convenient, need of the button sort of online package? So first of all, it's really a matter of being on campaign of what this is and what this isn't, insofar as getting everybody on board. And the reason why I say that is because faculty can and will be among your best advocates when it comes to recruiting students, because with the new program, in combination with some smart marketing to let people know that it's out there, faculty can be your best advocates insofar as offering some authenticity to the grassroots campaign to get that first cohort together. Lastly, I think that if you use the information on hand cleverly, insofar as if you're working hand in hand with admissions and start looking at people who have previously shown some interest in the program but on ground wasn't going to work for them, it might be good to circle back with some of those people that you have some information, some inquiries from, and just basically a person-to-person connection on, do you know that we have this program online? And, if it were a graduate program, I always say, hit the alumni hard from the undergraduate in similar places, and they already know the institution. And how do you feel about an encore sort of degree with us? And that's been very successful in sort of stacking degrees going from undergraduate to graduate at some of the colleges that I worked for.
Right, and I think that's smart what you were saying in terms of going to the enrollment professionals and seeing what information they may have or actual data they may have in terms of inquiries that didn't shake out because of the delivery modality. I think that's a different area to look at as well. Obviously, when you're looking to launch the program, trying to understand that potential market also plays into it. So just understanding that demand, either online or on ground for the program, could help. Let me just move on here. So online program design and policy. So these are, again, features of online programs, looking both asking online students what they are seeking, and then ACHE members what they're offering in terms of some of these features. We see a little bit of a disconnect here to say that online ACHE members are really 70% are offering faculty that are practitioner in their field. And then also we see 59% say many faculty teach full-time, hold a doctorate. We see that from the online college student perspective, these are less important features of programs for them, with only 10% around saying that they're seeking programs looking at these particular features. So I would really follow down this online students are seeking column and seeing where these numbers are kind of keying up, and these would be areas to, again, and talk about a little bit more in your marketing efforts. So if you're talking a lot about your faculty being practitioners, maybe tone down that messaging a little bit, and then maybe ramping up a little bit more if you do offer courses that are offered year round. These students, again, they're going online for some of these benefits, which would be 12-month courses, being able to study in a more accelerated format. So being able to complete their degree in less time than a classroom program. So these are factors or hallmarks of some of your programs. These are what the students are looking for, and these are the messages that I would talk about a little bit more, rather than necessarily focus on what credentials your faculty that are teaching the courses may hold. So that's how I would kind of read through these particular slides. ACHE members, are faculty incentivized in any way for developing their online courses? I would look at that no, but not any longer, the 9%. Just looking at that, that's showing that over time, that over 50% of ACHE members were incentivizing faculty to develop online courses. But as online has become more adopted, more maybe expected at their institutions, 9% of these members started to cut back on that particular incentivization. The incentivization is great for institutions that are newer to online that are or trying to bring a new program online, or maybe bring all their general education requirement courses online, and getting faculty to take that additional time to develop these courses. Incentivizing them is a great way to help get those courses built in a timely manner. But maybe as an institution matures, so again, we look at those that do have 5 or more online programs, those are going to be the ones falling into this 9% bucket that say that they are no longer incentivizing those particular faculty. The 32%, they say that they are not incentivizing faculty. I would, again, question the number of programs or courses that they have online, because that is the way that we've seen over time to get those courses built in a timely manner, is to provide some sort of incentivification. Bill, do you have anything around incentivizing faculty for developing courses? Is that a thing of the past more, or is that still going on pretty actively?
I think, again, it really depends on the maturity of the online enterprise, and those institutions with robust, mature online programs are still involved in incentivization. I think in a bit of the naivety of some institutions sort of rush and get something online. I really think it's a matter of input and output. If I assign a faculty member to a course and they're thinking, well, this is great, I don't have to go to campus, I can just stay home and do it because it's online. I question if they're going to the online platform and opening up an empty shell weeks before the course begins and starting to build. Is there really going to be quality, or are there any checks and balances? Is there any assessment insofar as whether the course objectives are being met? That sort of thing keeps me up at night. Yet I know of many institutions of varying reputation that some that are top flight that are still doing this very thing. They don't really have a plan for building online courses aside from the assumption that the content expert is somehow going to be, by transference, an online expert as well. So, pulling a few of your ideas together, Andrew, with the faculty training, with the faculty incentivization, what kind of supports do we have in place? What kind of checks and balances? What kind of assessments do we have that we're actually meeting the course objectives through the online, through an online modality? I think we're really setting ourselves up for some pretty poor student reviews on the online experience if we don't have the preparation in place.
I just wanted to also ask, in your opinion, when you see these incentivization programs in place, they're obviously incentivizing the faculty to develop the course, but is there still also an expectation built into these most of the time that same faculty member would teach the course, or are they just there to build it and then other faculty can then teach it?
Well, I think, and again, it is really a matter of scale. And, if in fact we're working with sort of a master course sort of model where we duplicate or we flip it from semester to semester, flip it to several sections after the content expert and the instructional designer sort of hand in hand put this master course together, certainly, in my experience, the faculty member who was instrumental in building the master course probably gets first dibs. And whether that's sort of formally through a union contract at a public institution, I still know places which offer faculty revenue because they, in essence, own the intellectual property of the course, and that's in public universities in the Northeast. That isn't uncommon. In other places, it's a bit of a handshake agreement that you're always going to have the right of first refusal when this course comes up again, so you're assured to always have a place here. How else do we incentivize necessarily? That's a good question, because I have been, and I'm currently observing a situation where administration is involved in a forced march with an institution and getting them online, and basically telling faculty, you will do this. We have scheduled this course online for the spring. And the big question is, well, who's going to build it? Because the faculty are stepping back and saying they want nothing to do with it. Well, If I were in charge, which I'm not in this particular instance, I would probably be figuring out the pressure points. What's important to this faculty insofar as, do they need a hefty stipend to get them on board? Do they need some assurances insofar as there's quality measures in place when it comes to assessment or the back end? It's really a matter of this being a partnership as opposed to administration imposing online upon faculty members.
Right, and I agree. I mean, it is an additional task they're asked for, so the incentivizing, I think, does make sense as we look to grow some of those programs. So just moving on a little bit in terms of are students, residential campus students, allowed to enroll in online courses? We see that the majority here are saying yes, 90% are saying yes, that they are allowed to, and sometimes restrictions are placed upon them, which could be that online students, those that enrolled in fully online programs may have first dibs on those courses, or sometimes institutions will put limits in terms of not allowing freshmen or sophomores, lower classmen into online courses, feeling that they aren't, quote unquote, ready for an online experience or individual's online experience. Or the restrictions could be the number of courses per year or per semester that these students could take, but still 90% allowing their campus residential students to enroll in these online courses, which can obviously help fill in some of those seats so that these courses are running full, just as you would like your on-campus courses to obviously run full. Just moving on to barriers and challenges. Here I wanted to, again, look at the those that have overcome the barriers. So as we look here on the second slide here, we see that dark gray bar, we have overcome this barrier. And then we also have the we did not experience this barrier, which is the red. Online courses cost more to deliver than face-to-face. So obviously, as institutions embark on growing their online programs, they find that this quote unquote myth may be just that these courses are not costing them more to deliver compared to their face-to-face courses, and are able to overcome that in a rather quick manner, I would say. Working with faculty around IP issues, again, 39% did not experience this, and 31% were able to overcome that. So again, as Bill was talking about, working with faculty, incentivizing them, seeing them as partners in the process, as those conversations happen, these hurdles can be navigated, and more institutions are able to overcome this. A lack of faculty acceptance, 40% overcame this. So that means close to 90% of institutions going online experience this faculty hurdle that faculty don't necessarily see online as being the same level of quality as face-to-face. And over half of them are able to, at least to date, have been able to overcome this in terms of being a barrier to their online growth. Just going back to that first slide, what they are still experiencing are issues with students. Students need more discipline to succeed in online courses. I think this goes back to, again, we were talking about faculty training, as Bill was talking about, making sure faculty are equipped going in to handle these students in these courses. I think greater investment into those support services for faculty and students can help resolve some of this in terms of students needing more discipline. As we looked at those institutions with 5 or more online programs, obviously across the board, they overcame many more of these barriers, but still this student discipline is the number one area where they're still experiencing a barrier as well. So it is still across the board an important topic for us to look into, and for institutions to obviously look to diagnose a little bit more as they try to grow their online programs. Outcomes achieved. So once you navigate those barriers, what are on the other side of them? Increase student access. Obviously, if you're a public institution, that's one of your main goals, is to increase student access to higher education. Online is allowing you to do that. You're reaching a population that would not otherwise be able to come to your campus. So this is helping fulfill your mission. Along with that, obviously increased enrollment, and we see increased revenue, 77% and 69% respectively. So obviously, the more students we're enrolling, the more revenue that's coming in, and that can obviously go to help support the institution. As we were talking about earlier, those traditional student enrollments are starting to stagnate. attracting students from outside the traditional area. Again, thinking about some of those different programs and how you're marketing them, being able to attract students from maybe other states or across the country if there are unique programs that you're offering. So being able to fill more of those seats in some of those programs. This is a continuation of that. So enhancing the value of the college and university brand, shifting enrollments as well. So taking some stresses off of the facilities on campus is being seen as a positive outcome of this. Pedagogical improvements. I think this is not something that a lot of people talk about, but as these faculty members are teaching their online courses, and then they're also in charge of teaching their face-to-face courses, they're actually cross-pollinating what they're learning back and forth between their two different student groups and also the resources that they're using. If they find a really good simulation for, say, their biology course that they're teaching online, why wouldn't they use that same simulation in their face-to-face course? So we're seeing across the board just a cross-pollination of improvements in terms of pedagogy between these faculty that are teaching in these two different modalities. This is from the online college student survey, and it is again just looking as the return on investment, the outcome. 85% of these online college students feel that what they paid for their online degree program was equal to or exceeded the value they got out of it. So if they think about their motivations for enrolling, if it's changing their job, if it's getting a raise, 85% feel that they exceeded that or was equal to what they paid for it. So again, just another positive statistic as we go through these in terms of what online is able to do for students, but also on the campuses. So on the other side, we have challenges. So obviously retaining students, 53%, training and recruiting faculty, 47%. I think this again are two sides of the same coin. That I think that the more that we could support faculty and require them to go through different levels of training for teaching online, having that 24/7 help desk to help them out, the more engaging they can become in when they're teaching these online students, going through and using, again, different simulations, going through and engaging these students more, not being necessarily hesitant to teach an online course or just take what they're doing in terms of their face-to-face course and just uploading those presentations, those PowerPoint slides, and saying that that is what the course is going to be online. I think the more that we can get away from that and support these faculty members, the better retained students can be. And the easier it will be to recruit faculty because they'll want to teach again over and over these same courses because they're having great experiences doing so. Bill, did you have anything else to add around faculty training or just challenges that you still feel the market is facing?
Oh, absolutely, Andrew. I think that, you covered this, and I do love this survey in that it really brings to bear a lot of, what we do know, lessons learned. And actually, this was more of an affirmation for me. I still work with a lot of college presidents, a lot of provosts, a lot of online deans for that matter, who, or continuing education deans, I should say, who don't have much online and still are in this mindset of 15 years ago that, online is the goose that laid the golden egg. And if we only scale our online programs, we're going to be in the money. It's just not so anymore. It's costly to put good online on. And, if you scaled in the era of a Southern New Hampshire or an Arizona State or a Western's Governor or a Phoenix or a Kaplan and so on and so forth, they took advantage of that market. At this point, as far as I'm concerned, the market is saturated. So what is the niche? What is the nuance that you're sort of bringing to, to the online world when it comes to the online program, which is going to drive students? We don't need another undergraduate business or another MBA program in the market, at least in the very saturated markets like Boston, Philadelphia, et cetera. The second lesson learned from this survey is really the fact that I'm still fascinated by this firewall that we maintain when it comes to our full-time day students, and the fact that they will ultimately vote with their feet, and they do want online. They do want somewhat of a I'll call it a hybrid schedule, not necessarily a hybrid format, but a matter of 3 classes on ground, 2 classes online this semester, 3 online, 2 on ground next semester, and so on and so forth. And I've seen so many administrators who are trying to put up barrier after barrier to make sure this doesn't happen and we don't so-called cannibalize. It's a matter of getting students highly satisfied and getting them to degree completion. So it really is a matter of figuring out how to sort of level set tuition so we can accommodate all comers when it comes to online and on ground. And lastly, I think the takeaways for me with this is the matter of centralization versus decentralization, and the fact that we still struggle with where the online programs involved. Model A is we have a completely separate enterprise which owns the degrees and owns the academic content and may work sort of in tandem with the content experts, the faculties from the various departments. Model B, of course, is that the content areas, the faculty departments sort of own the online hook, line, and sinker, but they're not experts in online. And then Model C, of course, is we have an online unit acting as somewhat of a service provider for the academic departments. And I don't know whether any model is necessarily ideal, and this is what universities and colleges struggle with, and I hear it constantly, this ebb and flow of centralization and decentralization that's going on at many colleges and universities, basically with the whim of a provost or a president sort of incoming or outgoing. So I don't know if you have any insight today, Andrew, insofar as what the best structure is for the institution.
Personally, I mean, as we get into this, final section, I think we see that the reason for some of the struggle back and forth, because if we look at the numbers here in terms of just the revenue that these online units are being able to generate, there is just that contention inside in terms of everyone feeling they have a say in the operation and obviously a piece of that pie as well that they can lay claim to. If we go back to our earlier stat that, I think it was around 70% of CE units are touching some layer of these online programs that they're offering that they can lay claim to, some of these revenue dollars that are being generated. Right up here, we see that 22% are saying that greater than $5 million are coming out of these online programs. Now, equally, 39% say they're unable to calculate, which obviously is a detriment to, I think, any organization that if you're running these online programs and are generating millions of dollars, not being able to track that or lay claim to what you're able to support of that could be a problem with the institution. And this has been increasing over the last few years, steady or 3% growth, over 50%. And looking towards the future, what do these CE units look to in the next 2 years or so? We see kind of a split here with micro degrees and nano degrees. 60% saying that they're not planning to do this, 50% saying they're not planning to offer badges. But on the flip side, over a quarter saying that they are looking into it. So it may not be popular across all different institutions, but there is a strong segment here that are looking to this next layer of credentialing. Again, going back to the large percent of their offering certificate programs, looking at how we can break this degree down in the next few years and really meet those students that are looking to just really attain their skills and get into that job market that much quicker. And then just some final actions to consider. As I was talking about, focus on the variables of cost and time. These are price-sensitive students looking to complete their program in a quick manner, and for looking at transfer credit, trying to reduce that cost of the program. As we were just saying, breaking down the degree, so looking at those certificate programs, those micro-credentials, different ways of taking that degree and breaking it into smaller parts can also help with that action area 1 there, which is that time and cost variable. Faculty training is key. I think I talked about that a number of times. I think Bill agrees with me that well-prepared faculty can help retain students and also help some contention areas in terms of which departments are willing to offer their programs online. If these faculty feel supported, you'll be able to add more of those programs and those courses, and that faculty retention and finding faculty to teach online will become less of an issue at the institution. services and more services. I think I touched on just, again, those faculty services and also those student services. Online students are looking for these services because, again, they equally need to feel supported in their online program, that they're not just learning by themselves, and they know who to reach out to and how. And blurring the boundaries is looking at those faculty that are teaching both on campus and online, being able to take their what they've learned back and forth between their classrooms, and allowing students to do the same. That if you're an online student, you don't have to earn every single credit online. You can go and take some of those face-to-face courses. Again, they are within 50 to 100 miles of your institutions. And if you're an on-campus student, being able to take and supplement your program with some online courses if need be. So I think those were the last points I wanted to make. Obviously, there's the URL there for the particular report if you wanted to download it. Obviously, I didn't touch on everything here. There's a lot more in there, and you can read a little bit more detail about the data and some of those key findings, and hopefully take them back to your institution. So, Bill, I just wanted to thank you for joining me here today on the webinar and for your insights. So if anyone has any further questions, you can obviously type them in, but if not, I think we'll call it a close here for today.
Well, thank you, Andrew. And again, I do appreciate our partnership, ACHE Learning House partnership with this survey. I think really yielded some wonderful insights, which certainly the member institutions, I've heard plenty of sort of compliments, on the value of this survey. Are there any questions or?
Well, we just have one question that came in. Can you give any advice specific to an OPM for enrollment growth?
For an OPM, so an online program manager, much like the Learning House, I mean, how we use this data obviously is to look at those fields of study that students are looking at and are have interest in, and obviously focus in on some of those areas first. I know I thought I saw something else pop in around the difference between mass market programs and niche programs. So usually from the OPM's perspective, I mean, what we try to do is look at those areas of student demand. So that question about who was offering what in terms of the level of degree and also those fields of study. And obviously, we looking at the institution, what their strength areas are. So knowing that if they are really known in the healthcare field, and we know that online students are really looking for healthcare degrees, understanding their particular region, that 150-mile radius, who's also offering healthcare degrees, and obviously trying to launch programs that are meeting the needs of those people in that region, meeting the needs of employers in that region, and obviously have some layer of student demand for them as well. So just trying to look at those different legs of the stool and balance them out. That's mainly how I think we would look at program launches. Obviously, making sure, obviously at the Learning House, we try to look at a portfolio approach, making sure that there are a number of different areas online as well. So you're not just doing all healthcare programs or business programs, trying to spread that out and attract as many students to the institution as possible, but still staying true to what that institution is known for and its mission. So not just launching programs for the sake of them, but making sure that they're tying back to those strengths, because students are going to look at that, as we talked about, reputation. So that's, we can't necessarily take every single program and launch it at every single institution. So just understanding that and understanding the region and seeing how to best balance that out. Bill, did you have any other things to add around program launches?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be more than happy for an online conversation with the individual if he or she reaches out. And that I've considered this a lot, and I think I've pretty much seen every OPM under the sun at this point. As a dean, as a former dean myself, and so far as shopping around. And I love the point that you just made insofar as looking at a strategic plan for online as opposed to, what is really part of the institutional DNA, as opposed to saying, well, cybersecurity is really hot right now, and I know that we're a liberal arts college where people come to do dance and theater, but let's do cybersecurity. It doesn't make any sense. Understand where we want to, realign ourselves into really popular degrees and offer that. It was an interesting article. I think it was in the Chronicle. I posted it on LinkedIn the other day where liberal art colleges are figuring out how to prioritize some of these hot areas and sort of put applied skills front and center in order to draw a different audience. I think that's important, but I think the authenticity, as Andrew intimated, is more important insofar as for what do we claim expertise? What do we have deep knowledge on, and how can we pivot that into a productive online experience? And this is one of the things I like about Learning House, is that the Learning House does, in the early stages, does the strategic analysis, which Andrew leads, is involved in the market scan, is involved in delivering a really comprehensive report on the best opportunities that the institution has. I think that first step is essential, and if you're just delivering online degrees by gut, I really don't like your chances of success as an institution.
And also following fads as well. I think you were saying as well, say cybersecurity or data science or something like that. If you're just really not known or have strengths in that area, don't just follow the bandwagon because you think that's where it's going.
Well, to that point, and this is really the final takeaway for me through this survey, and sort of be honest of the work that we're doing, is that a lot of our online portfolio has a shelf life. And if it's cybersecurity, if it's data analytics, I'm thinking at 15 years in a career in continuing education, and how we all got excited post 9/11 about homeland security and first responder sort of pieces. There was a big hubbub in the Northeast, especially with what a lot of the fire unions or the firefighter unions were doing, where we all ran toward fire science. I think sort of planting one flag in cybersecurity or data analytics are one of these pieces, because we realize there's a great need right now and there's a lot of buzz, is all well and fine, but realize that you probably have about a 6-year shelf life on some of these programs. With that being said, there has to be, the online portfolio has to be dynamic and not static. You're going to have your evergreens like the business degree and some others which students are always going to come back for. But aside from that, it's really going to be a matter of launching and sunsetting, on a cyclic basis.
Okay. Well, thank you for that insight, Bill. Alex, were there any other thoughts or questions out there?
There are not. I just want to thank Andrew and Bill, and thank everyone for joining us today. We hope you found the insights that we shared valuable. Let us know what you thought about today's webinar by clicking the survey link posted in the chat pane. Today's webinar was presented by the Learning House. Learn more about the Learning House at learninghouse.com. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.